We can't win with just Republicans. We need to get this message out to every family across the country. What's the one thing that they all have in common? They care about jobs and the economy. Right. They care about education. They care about safety and security. These things transcend every state and every demographic. And so Republicans will win when we listen to the voters, we understand the issues that they care about, we put solutions on the table, and we talk to them. I think that there has never been a bigger contrast between two presidential candidates than there is today between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And we will absolutely do everything we can to allow as many people to see it.
All right, folks, welcome to the Sean Spicer Show. It is Holy Thursday, Maundy Thursday. We are not just on a glide path to the weekend, as I normally say, but here we are entering into this really holy triduum. So it takes on a special meaning right now, but we've got a lot happening in the political world. And so obviously want to get to that as well. Big changes at the RNC. You guys know about this. President Trump pushed a team in that he felt more comfortable with, Michael Whatley, who was the chairman of the North Carolina the North Carolina Republican Party. He had been general counsel of the RNC, which is like the top lawyer there. It's interesting. You still have a chief counsel, which is a staffer, and then you have, not that anyone cares, I love this stuff though, but the general counsel is one of the members of the RNC, the 168 members. That's who he was. Laura Trump obviously becoming the co-chair. So I wanted to sit down with Michael Whatley and ask, what's going to be different? How are things going to change from the last administration, if you will? What they're doing on election integrity. This is something that I get all your comments about all the time. What's happening to make sure that your vote counts? How should you vote? When I do these Sunday Night Lives, I get asked all the time, should I vote early? Do I trust mail-in ballots? What is his take? Has it changed from what they've been doing? I want to ask him that because it's a hot topic. And I know so many of you asked that. And what changes are happening? What's the RNC doing election integrity wise? I think that's important because these drop boxes and the early voting and the absentee, everybody gets a ballot like it's some kind of Oprah giveaway. I want to ask them, what are they doing? This is why Trump really wanted some big change. And obviously then the money. What are they going to do to raise the money to keep up with the DNC? All this stuff costs money. Put boots on the ground. I think there's 8 battleground states. Some people say 6. It doesn't matter. But you got to have people knocking on doors, making sure that people are going to vote. Because at the end of the day, polls don't mean anything if people don't go out and vote, right? I mean, you can poll 80%. If your people don't go out there on election day or early or whatever, it doesn't matter. A state like Arizona, by the way, 2 cycles ago, we won by like 100,000+ on early vote. We lost it last cycle. So that's a lot to chance on election night. What are we doing? How are we going to make sure we overwhelm the vote so that you can't do anything? I mean, you see these guys, despite COVID being gone, we're still going to have drop boxes. We're going to still do this. Ridiculous. This was all about changing the system of voting. Why are we starting to vote in September, by the way? How insane is that? There hasn't even been a debate, interaction. People are just coming off summer breaks. It's because they know what they're doing on their side. What are we doing to even the playing field? Then you guys know I've said this countless times. If President Trump doesn't have a Republican Congress, particularly a Republican House, they're just going to sit around and impeach the guy like every week. So what are they doing to help the down ballot races as well? I think that's important to understand. And I'm going to get to all of that with him. Plus, I want to know about what he thinks about NBC. Regardless of what you think about Ronna McDaniel, take her out of the equation. The idea that a network, one of the 3 big networks, refuses to have Republican voices on that don't hew to their ridiculous narrative, that don't make us bow and kneel at their altar about how wrong and bad we are. Why are we playing ball with them? I'm tired of it. I used to be a big tent guy. We should talk to everybody. And to some degree, certain people can pull that off. I love watching Dan Crenshaw. Marco Rubio schooled everybody the other day. On This Week, Nancy Mace took George Stephanopoulos to town. But why are we giving interviews and treating NBC like they're actually a bona fide network? They are a tool of the Democratic Party. Chuck Todd was a campaign operative. He went out and worked. This isn't like, he just leans left or whatever. That's how he came up in politics. He worked for Democrats. Jake Tapper worked for Democrats. George Stephanopoulos worked for Democrats. Why are we pretending like somehow they're now, like they're all good people that want just the best for the country and they're even-handed. Give it a break. So why are we giving them the dignity of this? They get to treat us horribly, and then we go and give them like primetime seating and interviews and debates. No mas. I'm going to see what his take is on this. And then you remember the whole thing that the RNC did with cutting off the Commission on Presidential Debates. Okay, well, now that Trump and the RNC are simpatico, what are we going to do about these debates? I want to get into it with Michael Whatley. He's the new chair of the RNC. As I said, he was the chair of the North Carolina party and the one that Trump wanted to lead this effort. So we got a couple great sponsors, as you know, that make sure that the show is broadcast to you free every day. By the way, if you haven't already, please take the time right now. You can pause if you're on YouTube. I'll forgive you. Just hit that subscription button. Go to Rumble, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure you're getting the audio version and the video version. It doesn't cost anything. It's all free. All these other things, Hulu, Netflix, whatever, they all cost money. We're free. Hit subscribe 4 times. Make yourself feel good. Make me feel good. Make the sponsors feel good. But I digress. Before we bring in Michael Whatley from the new chairman of the RNC, I want to tell you about 2 of the great sponsors that do make this show possible, that do allow me to bring it to you every night for free. So let's hear from them. All right, if you're an animal lover like I am, I want to tell you about the great work of Delta Rescue. And if you go to deltarescue.org, you can check it all out right there. There's great videos. They show you what they do. It's a no-kill sanctuary. Notice that I didn't say shelter. Animal lovers, you're used to going to the shelter to rescue, right? Leo Grillo founded Delta Rescue as a no-kill sanctuary for life that dogs, cats, horses, and other animals can get the care that they need. The veterinary care, the nutrition care, as a place to run free, to enjoy the rest of their lives. But Delta Rescue only exists because of the contributions of people like you and me. $5, $25, $100, $1,000, a couple thousand, whatever you can spare if you're an animal lover. But more importantly, Leo Grillo, when he founded it, wanted it to be an enduring mission, something that went on well into the future. And to do that, we're asking people to check out deltarescue.org and go to the estate planning kit. So if you can make a contribution, great. But also go to the estate planning kit and see if you can make Delta Rescue part of your estate to help make sure that mission endures forever. Go to deltarescue.org, check out the great work that they do, make a contribution, and then download that estate planning kit to see if you can make it part of your estate. When crisis hits, when an emergency hits, will you be prepared? I know I will, because I have a Patriot Power Generator 2000X in my house. And you can too if you go to 4patriots.com/Spicer. 4patriots.com/Spicer. When the power goes out, whether that's a day, a couple days, a few weeks, maybe even a month, think about all the challenges that we face to our power grid, natural disasters and emergencies. You want to be ready. And with the Patriot Power Generator 2000X, you can power your refrigerator, devices, computers, tablets, phones, you name it. All the things that are important to you, your family, that can be taken care of. And you can bring the Patriot Power Generator into your house. No fumes, no gas, no noise. It's perfect. It's portable, and it charges on solar panels that come free with it. You don't have to worry about reloading it, bringing out gas, getting it filled, the fumes, the noise. No, the Patriot Power Generator is fully portable. It can go into your house. You can put it in your car, drive it somewhere, helping out a family friend. And again, it's completely powered by solar panels that come with it. So go to 4patriots.com/Spicer so that you are ready in an emergency or crisis. Chairman Whatley, good to see you. Congrats on the gig. How are you liking it so far?
Doing great. We're really having a good time, and it's obviously very intense. You know, we're 32 weeks out from the election cycle, and we have a lot of work to do, but it's a lot of fun, and we've got a great team, and we're really in a position to do what we need to do to win in November.
Yeah, I was there for 6 years. I'm not sure fun was the word I would choose in an election cycle, but I appreciate your attitude. I think the question that most people have is what's going to be different under your chairmanship and your tenure?
Look, I think the biggest thing that we've got right now is a presumptive nominee. And obviously the convention that we're going to have up in Milwaukee in July is going to be an absolutely wonderful opportunity to kind of roll out the Republican vision and President Trump's vision to the whole world. But beyond that, we really need to focus on 2 things. We got to get out the vote. We got to protect the ballot. And everything that we do at the RNC is going to be focused on those 2 missions. So when we are fundraising, it's for a reason. When we are talking to the press or talking to the voters, it's for a reason. We need to recruit and train thousands of volunteers all across the country for a reason. And the reasons are pretty simple. Get out the vote, protect the ballot.
Okay, so, and I agree that 100%, but what is different or unique from what Ronna McDaniel is doing and what Chairman Mike Whatley is doing? Staff allocation, financial resources to the states and the headquarters, like what's different philosophically and logistically from what was happening, say, 3 weeks ago?
Well, the biggest differential is the fact that we have a presumptive nominee. So as you've seen this building before with the committee, we are going to be effectively merging with President Trump and his campaign to make sure that every dollar that we spent is going to be spent putting lead on target. We're not going to have two political shops. We're going to have one. We're not going to have two communication shops. We're going to have one. And in every place that we look around the building is going to be making sure that we're finding the efficiencies so that every dollar that we raise is going to be put lead on target.
All right, so let's talk about those dollars. A lot has been made in the media about the differential between the Biden campaign and the DNC and the RNC and the Trump campaign. What are you guys going to do to make the case to bring in more money, and how confident are you all that you will have the resources you need?
We're 100% confident that we are going to have the resources that we need. I mean, we've only had a presumptive nominee for 2 weeks. I think that when the March numbers roll out, people are going to see a pretty good number. When we talk about President Biden and the DNC, they've had 4 years to raise money together, which is why they have a head start. I have absolutely no doubt that we're going to have the resources we need to take our message to every American voter.
About half of the money every month comes from big donors, those that give, probably $1,000 or more, and then small donors, the 250 and less. Where do you think that there's more room to make up if you had to pick one side?
I don't think you need to pick one side. I think what we're seeing is excitement in every single conversation that we're having. We're getting a great response from the email and the direct mail traffic, and we're getting a great response from the major donors that we're talking to across the board. Look, America is ready for a change. The Republican Party is absolutely ready for a change. We cannot take 4 more years of Joe Biden. We cannot take 4 more years of Democratic control. When we look at the contrast between President Trump and President Biden, the American people know that the 4 years under President Trump were better for this country than they are under the 4 years for Joe Biden. And we're going to have the support that we need to be able to put that message out.
One of the challenges that I faced in 6 years there was explaining the role of the RNC, what the RNC does. And to everybody out there, they want it to be everything to everyone. They want you to do advertising. They want you to get out the vote. They want you to do voter integrity. What are you, in your mind, what are the core missions of the RNC?
I think the core missions are get out the vote and protect the ballot. I think really, truly, that's what we need to do. Obviously, we are putting our program together with the president's campaign, and we also have a fantastic working relationship with the NRCC and the NRSC. At the end of the day, this committee is about electing Republicans. We need to put President Trump back in the White House. We need to flip the Senate, and we have to expand our majority in the House. That is exactly what we're going to be focused on.
When people were reading about why President Trump selected you, one of the top reasons is he really believed your background as a lawyer, what you had done in North Carolina on the issue of election integrity was something that he seemed really attracted to you as why he wanted you to lead the effort here at the RNC. Walk us through, for the average viewer out there, this is probably the number one comment I get. Is my vote safe? What should I do this election cycle? Should I vote early? Should I not? What's the RNC or the party doing to protect my vote? So let's delve into that for a second. What should voters know about the state of their ballot as they head into the cycle? Is it safe to vote early? Do you want them to vote early? Do you want them to vote in person or by mail?
Yeah, look, when we see election integrity, we see 2 basic functions that we have to be involved in. The first is making sure that the rules of the road are the right rules of the road and they're being followed. So that means working with legislators to enact good election integrity laws. It means working with state boards of elections or secretaries of state, regulators, to make sure that we have good rules and regulations and that they're going to be implemented in the right way. And if the legislators or the regulators won't do the right thing, then we're going to have to go to court. We are currently involved in 80 different lawsuits in 24 different states around the country to make sure that we have the rules of the road the right way. The second big thing that we need to do is you've got to be in the room. When it comes to election integrity, my favorite thought on that is I would rather have a police car parked in front of a storefront window than call them after a rock gets thrown through it. We need to have thousands of attorneys, tens of thousands of observers all across the country that are going to be in the room when votes are being cast and when they're being counted. When we have a program like that in place, we feel very confident that we're going to have a much better election integrity program across the country.
Okay, so let's just, how many battleground states do you look at right now?
Well, I think if you talk to most of the experts, there's probably between 6 and 8 states. Yeah. I kind of look at 7. I think that, we need to make sure that we have these programs up and running in all of those states. You asked about early voting. We are going to see over half of all American voters are going to be voting before Election Day this cycle. And some are going to be voting by mail. Some are going to be voting early in person. And then obviously you're going to have a huge chunk that are going to be voting on Election Day. And we need to have the assurance that those votes are going to be protected across the board, no matter how people vote.
So let's take a state like Arizona. 2 cycles ago, 2016, the Republicans won the early vote big, something like 100,000. And then in 2020, they lost it. What are you doing specifically, like in a state like Arizona, to encourage people to what you guys had called bank your vote up until a few weeks ago? I don't know.
Well, we are gonna continue the Bank the Vote program. I think it's very, very important, and we've got great buy-in from the congressional leadership, from the Senate leadership, as well as the president and his team. Look, what we need to do is we need to communicate with voters before they go vote. If half the voters are going to be voting before Election Day, we want them to be informed voters. So we're going to shift our messaging and our communications with those voters earlier. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to tell the voters in every state, here's the different ways that you can vote. You can vote by mail. You can vote in person. You can vote on Election Day. And then allow them to choose how they want to vote. We don't necessarily want to steer people into one bucket or the other. What we want to do is get an understanding of how they want to vote and then make sure that they go do it.
So it's interesting that you said that. I am a believer in early voting, and I know everyone doesn't agree with me, but my view is the sooner that you bank your vote, the less money that you and the Trump campaign and whoever else have to chase me. You don't have to spend money calling me. You don't have to spend money mailing me, knocking on my door. The sooner I do that. So it's interesting that you're saying we don't want to steer anyone that way. I would just think from a resource standpoint, you would want people to do that.
Well, we would, right? But there is a big contingent of Republican voters that want to vote on Election Day. And so that's fine, right? But what we want to do is take people that do not necessarily have a plan and say, hey, here are your options. This is where we want to go. Certainly there are benefits when people go early vote. Look, I early vote on the first day of early voting every election cycle because as the chair of the North Carolina Republican Party, I didn't know where I was going to be on Election Day, but I knew where I was going to be on that first day of early voting. So we want to go out and we want to make sure. And yes, there are absolute cost savings because we do not have to continue to reach out to those voters, either in terms of the door knocks or the phone calls or sending mail, things along those lines. Yes, that's absolutely true. But our focus is making sure that by whatever means you want to do it, you're going to go vote.
So states like Pennsylvania last time didn't follow their own constitution that doesn't permit them to do certain things. Wisconsin had issues where they literally didn't follow the regulations in their state, the voting regulations of the state law when it came to drop boxes, early voting, same day registration, things like that. Is that something that you guys are addressing, going after those states and saying your constitution says this, your voting regulations say that, or are you talking about something different?
No, that's exactly what we're talking about. I mentioned that we're involved in over 80 lawsuits in 24 states, and a very significant chunk of those lawsuits is exactly what you're talking about, where we're going in and we're looking at drop boxes. We're looking at ensuring that we have voter ID. We're looking at making sure that we have protections for absentee ballots, whether it would be signature requirements or witness requirements, or the fact that those ballots should be in by election day, not 3, 4, 5, 9, 10 days later.
So it's funny. One of the interviews that I saw, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, was detailing all the efforts that the RNC had been dealing with on election integrity. And it seemed pretty robust. And then somebody said, one of the commentary folks that was commenting in this article said, yeah, but if you don't know it's happening. So what are you guys doing to get the word out about, what you were saying about getting lawyers and poll watchers and the lawsuits? Are you guys in kind of engaging in some kind of PR campaign to let people know what you're going to be doing on the election integrity front?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. And we need to make sure that we're out there. So in every one of our battleground states, we are putting election integrity teams on the ground. And part of their job is to go out and communicate with all of the stakeholders within the state. And then we want to make sure that we're going out to outlets like you and having conversations like we're having right now to be able to get that word out there. Look, we can't do this by ourselves. In every single state, we need 5,000, 10,000 volunteers. We need 250, 300, 500 different lawyers that are going to be able to serve as observers and be able to be there when votes are being cast and counted. So we have to amplify our messaging. We've got to build these ballot protection teams across every one of the states and get these people in play.
So you mentioned the get out the vote effort, the ground effort. I know during the 2016 election, when we worked with the Trump campaign, we were really proud about the boots on the ground that we put in every one of these battleground states to identify key voters, to identify high propensity voters, low propensity voters that like President Trump's effort. What is your vision for the get out the vote effort in the days now leading up to the election? How many people, how soon, how many states, et cetera?
We are building that program out right now. And I think that, every state where we have a victory program, which is kind of our marquee program. And that's what you're talking about with those, the 72-hour programs and everything else. Of course, those are now 72-day programs is what it feels like, right? But no, we are recruiting and training thousands of volunteers in every one of these states to be able to get those out there. And you talk about low propensity voters. One of the key things that we want to do is to get those low propensity voters out. We know if they vote, they're going to vote Republican, right? So it's just a matter of how can you reach them and what is going to turn the trick? Is it digital communications? Is it direct mail? Is it knocking on their door? Is it having a phone call? We're going to run every single thing that we can at these voters to make sure that we can get them committed and get them out there. The other big thing that we're going to be focusing on is going out to minority communities that not traditionally voted Republican and make sure that we're having conversations with them. President Trump has done a fantastic job of reaching out to Black voters and Hispanic voters, and we're already seeing that they are coming to the Republican Party in big numbers, and we certainly think we're in a position to capitalize on that in these battleground states.
It's interesting you say that because not only is President Trump drawing in particularly Black men, younger Black men, but there's stories out there about how, it says, Biden has big problems with voters of color as support reaches historic lows, analyst warns. So it sounds to me that despite some of the early stories that were coming out, you guys are going to make a real effort in these battleground states to reach out to these communities?
Yeah, we have to. You think about it, as a general rule, a lot of these battleground states are a third Republican, a third Democrat, and a third unaffiliated. We can't win with just Republicans. We need to get this message out to every family across the country. And we're talking about urban families. We're talking about suburban families. We're talking about rural families. What's the one thing that they all have in common? They care about jobs and the economy. Right. They care about education. They care about safety and security. These things transcend every state and every demographic. And so Republicans will win when we listen to the voters. We understand the issues that they care about. We put solutions on the table and we talk to them.
If you're like me and looking to secure your financial future, then I want you to do me a favor. Call my friends at Bishop Gold, 844-984-1616, or go to bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean and have a conversation with them, or check out the materials on the website, bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean, about how you can add precious metals to your investment strategy. Maybe you have an old 401k, an IRA, or you're just looking to diversify your investment strategy. I called them. I had a conversation about where I am in my financial planning, how we could add financial metals to my strategy, right? So I invested my money with them. You get hit up from a lot of groups all over. I see it every day when I watch TV or I'm online. I trust the people at Bishop Gold Group. They're full of integrity, knowledge about the industry, about investments and strategies. Call them and help them create a strategy that works for you based on the assets that you have. Again, maybe it's an old 401k or an IRA that you have sitting there, that they can help you do it. You can talk to them about holding on to the metals. They can liquidate them for you. They can hold on to them for you. But call Bishop Gold Group 1-844-984-1616 or go to bishopgoldgroup.com/Sean to begin your financial journey with precious metals, and you get a free gift. You know, one of the issues that I always care about, I tell people, if we don't have a Republican House, then President Trump can't get his agenda through. The first 2 years, he got a lot done. The second 2 years, he got impeached twice. So we need a Republican House. Some of those key states that are part of the coalition to keep a majority and grow a majority in the House include California and New York, states that we used to call them orphan districts, right? They're not part of the battleground state matrix here. What are you guys doing to maybe work with the NRCC to make that a part of the winning coalition?
Yeah, that's a huge focus of ours. And I got to say, Richard Hudson, who is the chair of the NRCC, is a fellow North Carolina guy.
That's right.
We've been friends for about 30 years. I could not have a better working relationship with him. And I've already had a good conversation with him and Speaker Johnson about those types of districts. You know, when you think about in California, you know, we've got 4, 5, 6 districts where we are very competitive in districts that Joe Biden won. Same thing with 7 different districts over in New York. We have got to compete in those if we're going to have the majority. Frankly, California and New York have given us the majority that we have today. We're going to see redistricting in places like Wisconsin or Louisiana, where we've already got it underway, even in Mississippi, that could cost us a different seat here or there. Fortunately, in North Carolina, we were able to flip the North Carolina Supreme Court. We got a new set of maps that came in. And we're going to pick up 4 seats in North Carolina, which are going to be absolutely essential. But the key to this is that you've got to have, through the presidential campaign, a candidate and a campaign that are going to have a tide that is going to raise all boats. Yeah. We need a 25-seat majority. We need a 30-seat majority. You know, we are seeing right now how difficult it is to govern with a 1-seat majority. We've got to be able to expand that in the House.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear you say that. The pickups in New York ensured that we got this. So that's fantastic. I want to move on. Your predecessor, Ronna McDaniel, obviously signed a contract with NBC News. They outed her right away. I mean, look, regardless of what anyone thinks of Ronna, the bottom line is we saw NBC's true colors. So the first question I have is, as the convention comes up, one of my pet peeves was always that the RNC outsourced the credentialing to the House Periodical Gallery, which meant that they credentialed who got to cover the RNC, not the RNC. Would you guys, A, be willing to take that back over, and B, not credential NBC?
Well, look, what I will say is this, that, when you see the double standard that the media is doing right now, is putting on the table, where they're absolutely melting down about Ronna signing a contract with NBC. You know, Jen Psaki walked directly out of the White House onto the MSNBC set, and there was absolutely no protest, no complaints from any of their journalists whatsoever. You know, we see guys like Chuck Todd, George Stephanopoulos, who have been able to go on these networks without any complaint whatsoever. It's an amazing double
But Chairman,
standard.
I guess the point is that there's 2 schools of thought. Some people will tell you, well, those guys still have an audience. We got to go to them. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of letting Chuck Todd go off and talk about how horrible we are about their biased coverage, and then we reward them. Isn't it time at some point in 2016, you might recall, we didn't allow them to host a debate. They didn't like it. They were mad at us. But at some point, we can't be complicit in this. So what punishment should NBC face for if they don't want us, if they don't want our voices on their air, then we shouldn't give them the credibility of putting people on them, letting them come to our events and spew vitriol. So can we at least agree that they shouldn't cover or get carte blanche to come cover an event if they're only going to demean us?
Well, what I would say is this. You got to even wonder if Chuck Todd is going to allow his bosses to cover the convention. We really need to look right now at every single platform that's available for us to get our message out there. One of the great things that we saw from President Trump in 2016 was his ability to directly communicate with the voters. He was able to do that through the networks. He was able to do it on social media. I think he frankly invented social media as a political platform with what he was doing on Facebook and Twitter, to the point where they came back and they shut him down, right? But what we need to do is to be able to go and talk to all American voters, and any platform that we can possibly use to communicate with those voters, we've got to be able to take advantage of. Is the mainstream media going to treat us fairly? No. Have they ever treated us fairly? No, they're not going to do it. Does that mean that we want to necessarily never go on there and never try to reach those target audiences that they cover? I don't think so, right? What we want to do is use any vehicle that we can to get our message out to the American voters, because when we have informed voters, they are going to say, were we better off under Joe Biden, or are we better off under President Trump? And the answer there is very, very clear, that America was better off under President Trump and will be better off under President Trump than they are right now under Joe Biden.
Okay. Last question for you. Will there be a general election debate between President Trump and President Biden if the RNC has anything to say about it?
We certainly hope so. I think that there has never been a bigger contrast between two presidential candidates than there is today between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And we will absolutely do everything we can to allow as many people to see it. And there's no better way than having that type of a debate. I will be absolutely stunned. Do you want it via,
what will you guys have already said no presidential debates commission. So does that mean working with the DNC or going campaign to campaign, or will you actually allow the Commission on Presidential Debates to host these?
We will defer to the president and his campaign and his team in terms of those logistics. But what I will say is he's made it very clear that he will go on to any platform to have a debate face-to-face with Joe Biden. And I think it would be absolutely great for us to have an opportunity to draw that contrast with the American voters.
Okay. Chairman Michael Whatley, congratulations on all your success. Obviously, we're hoping and praying for your continued success. It's so crucial that we win this election at the presidential level, at the Senate, in the House, and obviously in states throughout the country like North Carolina, because we do need to take back the country. So you're in our thoughts and prayers. We really are hoping for your success, and thanks for stepping up and leading this effort.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sean. It's great to be with you.
You bet. All right. Let's break down that interview for a second. One, I like what he's talking about on election integrity. We've got to go after these guys. If their state constitution doesn't allow it, early voting, drop boxes, mailing a ballot to everybody, then why are we not aggressively going after them? We know what their plan is. There was a commission in 2000 headed by Jimmy Carter, a Democrat, who said that this was ripe for fraud. It shouldn't take, they basically do everything they can to make sure that you can't question a voter, and then they say there's no fraud. Don't you love how the media does that? Think about all these people who we've given licenses to that are illegally in this country, that came in illegally, and then we, roll out the red carpet for them. The Dems want them to become legal voters. We know that. But how can we prove that they're not? I've asked countless secretaries of state, what can we do to prove that they're not? Unfortunately, we can't. It's not their fault. They're hamstrung by the legislature that passed a law in their particular state. But we give these guys driver's licenses and they go to register to vote. Who's going to, we create a system that allows this to happen. And then the media says we can't prove it. How are you going to prove it? You gave them a license. You gave them the ability to operate freely and roam around the country and work. And then you go, well, prove it. It's unprovable, isn't it? I got to give the Dems some credit here. What they've done, pretty amazing. But here's the thing. We can stop this, and we're not. Just watch people keep coming into the country illegally. Cut the wire, come flying in. Can I please have my phone, my gift card, my hotel room? And by the way, I'd like to vote. This is crazy. So at least give them some credit for what they're doing to deal with this. It's important. At some point, we've got to realize that, like, this is what it takes. And I also believe, to his point, we've got to get out there. If you can, be a poll watcher. It was funny, when I went out on Super Tuesday to vote, the Democrats had people there. Now, granted, it didn't matter, right? I vote in Virginia, and the nomination was over. Nikki Haley had already dropped out. Or had she? It was Super Tuesday. No, she was still in, but let's face it, I think she was done. But there was no Republicans at the poll. Now, granted, my precinct is definitely overwhelmingly Democrat. But we're our guys. We got to make sure that we're there. Now, it's a primary. So, again, is it the biggest priority in the world? No. But come this general election, if you can, please volunteer. Go out there, do something to partake in this, because we need to be part of it. I've said this before. It's like the TSA, see something, say something. If we don't report it, it doesn't matter. Anecdotal evidence doesn't work in a court of law. The example I've given you guys before, you can't call the police and say, there was a guy, I can't describe him, he did something bad. I mean, they can't investigate something if they don't know where it happened, what time, the description of the person, whatever. So just saying something 10 days after the voting, oh yeah, you wouldn't believe what happened in my precinct. No, you need to document it at the time, call it up at the time. That's what we need to do to stop Democrats from knowing what's happening. Anyway, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Ronna thing, because I cannot stand it. And this has nothing to do with Ronna. And the media wants you to think it does. Oh, it's not her. We like Republicans. It's just the election deniers. Right? It's insane what happened. Let's just back this up. She leaves the RNC. She goes and pursues a contract, which she has a right to do. Now, I would have told you, having done a little bit about this myself, how this was going to go. Let's just say I've seen the movie. I actually mentioned this in one of my second book, as well as in a podcast the other day. When I went to do Dancing with the Stars, and follow me on this because it's important to understand, I had said, I thought it would be fun. I'm horrible, right? I have no rhythm. I thought this would be kind of an interesting little deal. It'll last for a week or two, but whatever. But when ABC presented me with this contract, I said, at one point when we were getting real serious towards the end, I said, look, there's going to be backlash. People don't like me on the left, especially the Hollywood types. And there's going to be backlash, and there's going to be advertiser boycotts, etc. It's going to happen. And they said, okay, well, we've dealt with this before, and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, that's fine. Do me a favor. Let's all take 48 hours. You guys think about it. I'll think about it. If you don't want to go through with this, let's just not do it. No harm, no foul, right? But if we do go forward, you have to have my back, because there's going to be an advertiser backlash. There's going to be a bunch of the Hollywood libs are going to go nuts. And I'm not going to have you just cut bait and drop me and say, we made a mistake and blah, 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 blah. I don't need that. You don't need that. So let's agree that if we move forward, we're all locking hands and jumping off the bridge together. They came back to me and said, okay, we agree. But I had made that predicate very clear I knew how it was going to go. How did Ronna not think that the folks at NBC were going to freak out? And the other thing is, she's represented by CAA, the big leftist Hollywood agency. By the way, I was telling people this the other day. As soon as NBC started to go, CAA is going to cut bait too. Those guys, they have it's a bunch of Democrats, and they're going to throw her under the bus just as quick as NBC did. And sure enough, they did. They'll rent you. They'll take their, 15, 20% commission off your contract, and that's what they get for facilitating this. So they were going to get it. As soon as Ronna wasn't useful, cut bait, she's out. Why are we playing ball with them? You heard what I asked them. So I want you to understand how the process works. When the RNC and the DNC go have their convention, the press gallery on Capitol Hill, the credentials, the media, you see the guys walking around with the little badges that go on, right? They basically outsource the credentialing to them. And there's a bunch of criteria that you need to get credentialed. Like, I could not go up right now and get a press credential on Capitol Hill. I'm not a media organization. I have a show. That's not good enough. I don't cover Congress. So if I want to go to the convention And I fought this battle when I was at the RNC. We set up a whole specialty aspect just as one-offs. But when Chuck Todd and MSNBC and CNN go to cover the RNC in Milwaukee, they're not calling the RNC to ask for credentials. They're getting it through the House Credentials Committee. The RNC takes all the credentials, gives them to them, and says, you guys do it. It's up to them. So when Rachel Maddow says, I want to bring, all these lefties to come be my guests, they've got the credentials to do it. The RNC should take that back. There's no obligation to it. They outsource it because it's easier to just let them do it. But you're going to allow Chuck Todd, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, they will all be at the Republican convention, mark my word. And they will all have been de facto credentialed by the RNC. Think about that for a second. When it comes to making money and ratings and all that kind of stuff, they have no problem. They just don't want to be associated with any of us. The RNC should not be facilitating anything with NBC. They hate us. They're bad people. And they're not in the business of the news. Stop it. The DNC doesn't do this. You don't see them hanging out with Fox News. Why are we? I mean, I get it. I want to go out and preach to all audiences. And if I'm selling a book, okay. If I'm selling something and I think I can facilitate something and make some sale, whatever, I get that. But why are we legitimizing them? I love all these stories to talk about. Ronna was going to humanize. How many stories wrote about humanize them? Like, you guys are the people that get to humanize people? What? Who the hell are you? Why are we on the right helping them? Give them credibility. No more interviews, no more credentials, no more debates, no more convention. Cut them off. I get it. It's a bit more work. But at some point, this gets back to courage and principle. Stand for something. It's not about Ronna. They'll rent us. They'll have Republicans, sure. If you hate Donald Trump, they'll bring you on board so they can say they have a Republican. Anyway, the one thing that I wanted to touch base on as well that we didn't get to in the interview is, have you seen the stories about the DNC freaking out about RFK? He selected this woman, Nicole, out the Silicon Valley woman. She's got a ton of money. She's 38 years old. And the DNC is going full bore against RFK. In fact, they're calling him not a Kennedy. He's a different kind of Kennedy. They don't want the Kennedy allure on. Because you know what happened? She got up on stage and gave her speech. This is a big money Democrat who was helping to fund Democratic candidates and causes. They're scared now. They realize that she's going to cost them votes. She's now appealing to their people. If you don't like Joe Biden, if you think he's too old, if you think he's too liberal, wow, check this ticket out now. You got a Kennedy and a young progressive woman who are articulating the tenets of what a normal Democrat used to sound like. In fact, she's probably a little more progressive than that, but that's neither here nor there. They're freaked out. They know that this is a big deal. They know that this ticket threatens Joe Biden. So keep an eye on this. They're trying to present this guy. Remember, these are the people who don't like democracy's being threatened. Democracy's on the ballot. Democracy is allowing at a fundamental basis of the ability of people to vote. And they want to deny that. They want to keep somebody off the ballot. They want to destroy the guy. Here's the irony, by the way. I cannot help to think about this for a second. If the guy had just run in the primary, if they hadn't tried to rig the system over there, they would have defeated him, and then there's sore loser laws. He couldn't have run as an independent. Sore loser laws would have prevented it, and it would have been too late to get ballot access. They could have just gone through the normal process if they weren't so scared, and they would have been done with Bobby Kennedy. They forced him to go this route. When Biden loses and the third party differential makes a difference here, it's going to be because they screwed this up. It's their fault. They created the situation. No one's going to write that because, well, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, I'm glad you got to be with us today to hear this interview with the chairman, Michael Whatley. I appreciate you being with us. Tomorrow, Chicks on the Right is going to be here. Great discussion with them to end the week on Good Friday. Have a great evening. We'll see you back here. Continue to subscribe, Rumble, YouTube. Go to my webpage. Go to theshawnspicershow.com/VIP if you want to be part of the VIP community. We'll see you back here tomorrow.